The rain was falling hard that night, turning the quiet streets of the small human colony into glistening rivers. Most people had gone indoors, hiding from the cold winds sweeping down from the mountains. But Sarah Holt stayed outside on the porch of her home, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Something had been bothering her all day. The air felt wrong. It was too heavy, as if carrying a pressure she couldn't explain. She had been in enough strange places during her years as a supply pilot to know when something was about to happen, and it was happening tonight. At first it was only a faint hum, like the far-off vibration of distant engines. Then the hum became a pulse, a slow, deep beat that rattled in her chest. The clouds above shifted, spiraling in unnatural patterns, and a dull red glow appeared high in the sky. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. That wasn't any human craft. No human ship made the air feel like it was trying to crush you. She stepped back, her eyes narrowing as the glow split into 3 smaller lights, descending slowly toward the colony. Her communicator on her wrist crackled to life with a voice from the control tower, strained and urgent. Unidentified incoming craft. 3 signatures. Not human. Repeat. Not human. No broadcast, no registry. Colony security is mobilizing. Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. Her gaze stayed locked on the descending ships, their shapes now visible through the shifting clouds. They weren't sleek or elegant like human freighters. These were bulky, armored, and scarred from battle. She could see strange glyphs burned into the metal, and even at this distance, she could sense the weight of age and violence they carried. As they came lower, the wind surged, snapping trees and sending debris flying across the streets. Then, just before touching the ground, they stopped hovering in place, completely still. The largest of the 3 ships opened, its hull splitting in the middle, like some massive mechanical jaw. From the blinding white interior light, figures stepped forward. They weren't wearing armor or carrying weapons. In fact, they weren't even adults. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They were children, alien children, tall and thin. With strange markings along their skin, their eyes glowed faintly under the rain. She recognized the species immediately, and the recognition turned her blood cold. The Raltec. Every spacer knew the name. The Raltec were one of the most feared predators in the galaxy. They didn't just win wars, they erased civilizations. And they never, ever let their young be seen outside their heavily guarded homeworld. The fact that these children were here, in the middle of a human colony, was unthinkable. The adults of their kind would rather destroy an entire planet than risk exposing their offspring to another species. But as Sarah watched, more and more of them emerged. Small ones, barely able to walk, clinging to older siblings. Their faces showed no fear, only calm. And then came the escorts. It's not warriors, not soldiers, but caretakers. Alien attendants stepped out holding strange cases and speaking in low tones. They looked around once and then began guiding the children toward the colony's main square. Within minutes, the entire settlement had gathered. Humans stood frozen, unsure whether to flee or to speak. The colony's governor, a tall man with graying hair, stepped forward and tried to open communication. Before he could say a word, a towering Raltec figure emerged from the largest ship. This one was clearly an adult, its body covered in dark armor marked with the scars of countless battles. Its eyes scanned the humans, and then it spoke in a deep, rumbling voice that seemed to echo through the air without any translation device. "We are leaving them here," it said. "They will be safe with you. No harm must come to them. If any danger finds them, your world will not survive our answer." A wave of uneasy murmurs rippled through the humans as the governor's voice shook. Why? Why us? Why bring them here? The alien didn't answer. It simply turned and walked back toward its ship, leaving the children standing in the rain. The attendants gave no explanation either. They handed over strange container supplies, perhaps, and then boarded the ships again. Within moments, the vessels rose back into the clouds, vanishing into the night without another word. The silence they left behind was deafening. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. This wasn't some diplomatic gesture or exchange program. No, This felt wrong. The Raltec had enemies everywhere. Leaving their children on a human world could only mean one thing. Something was coming. Something so dangerous that even the galaxy's deadliest predators didn't trust themselves to handle it alone. And for some reason, they believed humans. Could she look at the alien children now standing in the square? Their glowing eyes watched the humans without fear, as though they knew something no one else did. And in that moment, Sarah realized this wasn't just a strange arrival, it was the beginning of something far bigger. Something that could change the fate of the entire galaxy, and whatever it was. It had already begun. The air inside the human outpost felt tense after the arrival of the alien delegation. No one had slept. Even though they were here on peaceful terms, the unannounced visit of the Vorakai delegation carried an invisible weight. The Vorakai were one of the galaxy's oldest warrior races, feared even by empires 10 times their size. Yet they had come to a small human settlement, a backwater colony, world with no fleet, no weapons, and something hidden under thick security containers. Commander Alara Vance kept watching the alien leader, tall, insectoid figure whose glimmering eyes seemed to pierce through anyone he looked at. His bodyguards never moved more than a step away from the sealed crates they had brought. Every movement was deliberate, every gesture heavy with meaning. Alara had fought pirates, rebels, and even rogue mercenary fleets. But this was something she couldn't read. Why would a species like the Vorakai travel across half the galaxy without protection, set for a few guards and risk setting foot among humans? When they finally spoke, their voice was deep and clicking, each word translated into a calm human tone. "We have come with something most precious to us," the leader said. "We will place it in your care." The words seemed impossible. The Vorakai never trusted anyone. They barely tolerated the council. And yet here they were, speaking to humans who were still considered newcomers to the galactic stages. They were handing over a treasure. The crates were opened under the dim light of the command hall. And inside, wrapped in a strange fabric that shimmered like liquid metal, were children. Alien children. Small, fragile-looking, with eyes too big for their heads, watching the humans with quiet, unblinking curiosity. They looked nothing like their warrior parents. There was no armor, no weapons, only vulnerability. Alara felt a chill crawl down her spine. She knew what it meant. This wasn't just a diplomatic gesture. This was trust beyond reason. But why? Why would the deadliest species in the galaxy hand over their offspring to another race, let alone to humans? Alara tried to speak, but the Vorakai leader was already continuing. "They will live among you. You will feed them, teach them, and keep them alive. In time, they will return to us." Right. His eyes locked on hers, unblinking. "If any of them are harmed, Commander, there will be consequences." The translator softened the words, but nothing could hide the razor edge in them. A murmur went through the human crew. Some were confused, others uneasy. Humans were natural caretakers in their own way. But raising alien children from a warlike species was more than a challenge, it was a political minefield. If they failed, it could mean war. As the Vorakai prepared to leave, one of the alien children reached out and touched Alara's hand. She froze. The touch was light, curious. But in that moment she felt something strange. Not fear, not innocence, something sharper. Something that almost felt like an assessment. As if the child was studying her just as carefully as she was studying them. That night, Alara walked through the quiet outpost corridors, passing the rooms where the alien children now slept under human watch. She couldn't shake the thought that something was wrong. This wasn't just about trust. The Vorakai didn't believe in sentiment. Every move they made was calculated. If they had chosen humans to care for their young, it wasn't because they liked them. It was because they needed them for something. And then, just before dawn, a coded transmission arrived in Alara's private console. No sender, no trace. Just a single sentence. "You are not protecting them. They are protecting you." The mysterious message haunted Commander Alara Vance all day, sat in the back of her mind like a shadow she couldn't shake. "You are not protecting them. They are protecting you." The words made no sense. The Vorakai children were small, unarmed, and clearly too young to fight. How could they protect a fortified human outpost? Unless the threat wasn't something that could be stopped with guns or walls. She ordered a full scan of the surrounding systems. No unusual ships, no strange energy readings, nothing. Everything was normal, too normal. That was what bothered her. In this part of the galaxy, normal never lasted. Pirates, smugglers, rival factions, someone always wanted something, but now, after the Vorokai's arrival, there was silence. It wasn't peace, it was the quiet before an avalanche. The alien children were adapting quickly, perhaps too quickly. In less than a day, they understood most of the basic commands from the human caretakers. Their eyes darted from screen to screen when walking through the control room, as if memorizing layouts, interfaces, and access points. Alara began to notice small things, how they positioned themselves in a room, how they seemed to always know where the exits were, how they spoke to each other in clicks and low tones when they thought no one was listening. These were not ordinary children. During a routine supply run to the lower hangar, Alara overheard two engineers whispering nervously. "It's like they can hear things we can't," one said. Last night, the smallest one just walked to the viewport and pointed into the dark. 3 hours later, we picked up a faint energy spike in the same direction. Alara didn't interrupt. She didn't want the crew to know. She was already considering the possibility that these children had abilities, biological or otherwise, that humans didn't understand. Later that evening, she decided to speak to one of them alone. The eldest, a boy-like figure named Rin, met her in the observation deck. The stars reflected in his enormous eyes as he stood still, hands folded behind his back, mimicking the stance of human officers he had seen. "Why are you here?" Lara asked quietly. Rin's gaze shifted to her, calm and unblinking. "Because they are coming." Her heartbeat quickened. "Who?" Looked back at the stars, his voice no louder than a breath. "The ones even the Vorokai fear." Lara didn't know what to say. The Vorokai were considered the apex predators of space warfare. If something existed that frightened them, it meant the galaxy was sitting on a danger no one had prepared for. Before she could press for more, the outpost alarm screamed. Proximity alert flashed across every screen. Sensors detected a large mass emerging from deep space drifts, something massive. With no transponder signal and moving fast, the Vorokai children didn't panic. They didn't run. Instead, every single one of them turned toward the same viewport, watching the darkness as if they had been waiting for this moment all along. The unknown mass drew closer, breaking the stillness of space with an ominous pulse. The long-range sensors flickered for a second, as if struggling to process what they were detecting. Commander Alara stood in the control room, her eyes locked. On the expanding blip on the holomap, it wasn't just large, it was colossal, almost the size of a small moon. But unlike any moon, it moved with intent. The first visual feed came through grainy and distorted. A black silhouette blotted out the stars, jagged in shape, covered in what looked like shifting plates of armor. It wasn't a ship, not in the way humans built them. This was something alive, part metal, part flesh, its surface crawling with movement. Lara's breath caught when she realized those movements weren't shadows. They were thousands of smaller shapes attached to its hull, like parasites or drones waiting to be unleashed. The Vorokai. Children remained calm, their expressions unreadable. They gathered at the edge of the control deck, standing shoulder to shoulder. Not one of them spoke. Not one of them looked afraid. It was as if they had seen this before, Commander. "It's broadcasting something," said her comms officer, his voice shaking. The audio feed filled the room with a low, grinding hum so deep it seemed to vibrate in the bones. Mixed into it were faint clicks and whistles, almost like an alien language buried in static. The translation systems tried to decode it, but the text that appeared on the screen was fragmented and chilling. "Feed, feed. Feed." Lara turned to Rin. It's the eldest Vorokai child. "What is that thing?" she demanded. His answer came without hesitation. "It is a harrow. It eats worlds. It follows the scent of life." The crew stared at him in disbelief. "A world eater," the weapons officer muttered. Rin nodded once. "It has been hunting the Vorokai for centuries." Many believed it was legend, but we knew it would return. And now, it has found you. Alarms blared again, sharper this time. The Harrow had changed course directly toward the human outpost. Its speed doubled, and strange energy readings began spiking in the surrounding void. The drones clinging to its surface started detaching, drifting forward like a cloud of metallic insects. The human crew scrambled to battle stations, but deep down, Alara knew they weren't ready for something like this. If the Vorakai themselves feared it, then no conventional weapon in her arsenal would stop it. She looked at Rin, searching for an answer, any clue as to why his people had sent their young here. His gaze was steady. "We are not here to hide," he said quietly. "We are here to teach you how to kill it." The Harrow loomed in the distance, its shadow stretching across the void like a living nightmare. Its countless drone shapes swirled ahead of it in thick, churning waves, blotting out the faint light of nearby stars. Every second, more of them peeled off its hull, like pieces of darkness breaking away to swarm forward. The human crew had faced pirates, war fleets, and planetary defense grids, but nothing about this felt like a battle.
Ow.
This was a hunt, and they were the prey. Commander Alara stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the edge of the command console. The Vorakai children stood in a perfect line at the viewport, their eyes locked on the approaching Harrow. They still showed no fear, only the cold focus of someone who had already accepted the danger. Ilara could not decide if that steadiness made them comforting Elizor, unsettling reminders of what they had been trained to survive. "You said you came to teach us how to kill it," Ilara said finally, turning to Rin. "Start talking. We don't have time for riddles." Rin's black, glass-like eyes shifted to her. "Killing a Harrow is not like killing a fleet or a beast. It is alive, but its mind is not like ours. It feels hunger as a storm feels the wind. Cannot reason with it. You cannot wound it until it is ready to be wounded." Lair's patience snapped. "Then when will it be ready?" "When it believes it has already won," Rin said. His voice was calm, but there was something grim in his tone. "It must swallow part of you before you can strike at its heart. The heart is buried deep inside a chamber of bone and armor. You must lure it to open that chamber, and you must be inside it when it does." The crew exchanged horrified looks. It was a plan that sounded less like strategy and more like suicide. Before Alara could speak, another alarm screamed through the bridge. The Harrow had changed its formation. The drones ahead of it tightened into a spear-like swarm, accelerating toward the outpost with terrifying precision. Shields rose instantly, the outer defense cannons locking onto the black tide. It's the first volley of human fire burst into the void, tearing through dozens of drones, but for each one destroyed. 10 more surged forward. "They're testing our defenses," muttered the tactical officer. Like they're learning our fire patterns." Rin nodded once. "It learns everything. It will take the shape of whatever can break you fastest." A drone slammed against the outer shield, splintering into writhing shards that clung to the barrier and began eating into it like acid. Another followed, then another. Soon, the shields glowed red under the assault, the surface crawling with the dissolving fragments of the Harrow spawn. Ilara turned to Rin again, her voice low but urgent. "If we're going to do this, if we're going to get inside, then you need to tell me how. Now." Rin looked at her for a long moment. Then, without warning, he spoke in a sharp, rapid stream of clicks and tones. The other Vorakai children immediately broke formation, running to different parts of the bridge. One slid into the cum station, another pulled up star charts. The two began reconfiguring the weapon systems with surprising skill. Ilara's crew hesitated, watching the alien children take control of their stations, like they'd been training for this moment all their lives. "You're going to open the shield," Rin said finally. Ilara blinked. "Open it. That thing will tear us apart." Rin's gaze was steady. "It will, unless it believes the prize is worth keeping alive." The shields fell with a soundless ripple, vanishing in a shimmer of fading light. In the same instant, the void erupted. The Harrow swarm surged forward, filling the black with 1,000 streaks of movement. Drones hit the outpost's outer hull like meteors, some smashing straight through the plating, others clinging and cutting with claws that sparked against metal. The ship groaned under the impact, corridors shaking as if the void itself wanted to tear the place apart. Ilara barked orders, her voice sharp but controlled, forcing her crew to focus. Seal all inner bulkheads. Redirect power to internal guns. Keep them off the reactor. But the Vorakai children didn't move to defend. Instead, they opened hatches. Air hissed into the void, debris drifting into the swarm like crumbs tossed into dark water. The drones shifted instantly, drawn toward the scent of life spilling out of the ship. The tactic was working. They weren't here to destroy everything outright. They wanted to capture, to take pieces back to their master. Rin moved through the chaos with unnerving calm. The Harrow sees you now. It will not kill what it thinks it can feed upon. One of the drones tore through a corridor wall, its limbs slicing metal like paper. A Marine blasted it point blank with a pulse rifle, the creature shattering into oily fragments that hissed and burned where they landed. But for every one that fell, more replaced it, crawling through vents, tearing into decks, moving with the relentless focus of a hive that knew exactly where it wanted to go. "They're converging on Deck 5, the tactical officer shouted. "That's the cargo bay," Ilara finished grimly. It was where they'd staged the bait containers, loaded with life sign decoys, heat signatures, and the faint trace of human scent deliberately smeared across the crates. To the Harrow, it would look like hundreds of humans were trapped inside. Through the viewport, the massive shape of the Harrow shifted closer, its outline distorting as if its hull were made of living flesh. Plates folded, dark ridges expanded, and from its underside a maw-like opening began to yawn wide. Ilara felt her stomach tighten. She knew instinctively that this was the chamber of bone Rin had spoken of. "This is it," Rin said quietly. "Once it begins to draw the bait inside, you must go with it. The chamber will only remain open for moments." The plan was madness, but there was no time to think about the odds. The swarm had already breached the cargo bay, drones cutting apart the decoy crates and finding nothing, but the scent lingered, strong enough to keep them searching. The Harrow's maw widened further, a faint, shimmering pull beginning to drag debris, drones, and fragments of the outpost into its depths. Ilara turned to her crew. "You all know what this means. Once we're inside, there's no turning back." The Marines nodded grimly. The Vorakai children didn't even blink. Outside, the pull of the Harrow's maw deepened, dragging at the air, at the walls, at them, and then the outpost began to move not under its own power, but under the pull of something far larger.